Grandparents are an important source of happiness for their children and grandchildren by being with them and listening to their news, stories, and advice. It can be said that grandparents usually play important and sensitive roles in the lives of their families, as this comes through the enormous life experience that the elderly usually obtain, which makes them able to stand by everyone who needs them. The importance of having a grandmother with the family is represented in the effective and influential contribution to solving the problems facing children and grandchildren, in addition to the advice that grandparents usually give to everyone around them, stemming from a tremendous life experience, which helps them to identify the problems around them and find appropriate solutions to them. In addition, the grandmother also has a role in contributing to the upbringing of the grandchildren, as grandchildren generally like to sit with their grandparents. Hence, it can be said that the grandfather and grandmother are also parents to their grandchildren, and they contribute a great role to raising them on righteous values and high morals. On the other hand, there are people in our lives who always show what is not in their heart. There are hypocritical people who pretend to love us, but the truth is never that. There are people who pretend for their personal interests, such as money. For example, there are people who treat people in a very good way in order to obtain their financial interest, but not because they love the person. And here, that person falls as a victim in the hands of those who play with him, and this is emotional, financial, and moral exploitation. This happened in many families, and an example of this is that there's a woman named Sia who married a man named Henry and made him hate his grandmother so that she would only obtain her personal interest. And here Henry fell as a victim in the hands of his evil wife, Sia. In the beginning, there's a very beautiful family, and the father and mother love their son very much, and their son is Henry. Henry's a very beautiful child who loves his father and mother very much and has no brother or sister. He lives with his father, mother, and grandmother only. Life is proceeding very normal as usual. Father and mother go to work, and grandmother Isabella is sitting with her grandson Henry. Grandma Isabella always studied with him and teaches him a lot of things. She's the one who always helps him in solving problems, and she's the one who made a very good person, and she's the one who raised him with good morals. Grandma Isabella is always there for her grandson Henry, and she feels her grandson Henry will one day have something to do with him, and she loves him very much. She spends most of the time with her grandson because his father and mother are always at work. Grandma Isabella is very kind, but at the same time she's strict, as she does not like money being spent on trivial things. She believes that a person should save money and never spend it. She believes that the current generation is very wasteful, and that an end must be put to it. Days passed, and the situation remained the same until the dreary day came when the father and mother died in a very painful accident. Now Henry and his grandmother Isabella live alone in the house. Henry is very sad because of the death of his father and mother, but now his grandmother is with him. Grandma Isabella is very sad and always crying, but she does not show it to her grandson, Henry, so as to not make him more sad. Grandma Isabella tries to comfort her grandson, telling him, "I am with you and will never leave you. We will live together and we will not need anything. I am your comfort. Do not worry, my dear grandson." Years passed, and the situation now is that Grandma Isabella works as a seamstress, and at the same time she takes care of her grandson Henry and teaches him lessons, and Henry goes to school and returns to his grandmother and studies, and then eats with her and sleeps, and the days are the same. Grandma Isabella is very combative and is a model of the ideal grandmother because she takes care of her grandson. There is one negative thing about Isabella's character, and that is she's very stingy. She is very stingy, but Henry did not understand that because he's still young. But when he got older, he understood everything. Grandma Isabella has a lot of money in the bank and also has an inheritance in the bank. She has a lot of money, but she doesn't spend anything on her grandson. Henry always asks for expensive things, and she ignores it, saying to him, "We can buy what makes us happy, but we don't have to buy expensive things, and you should learn that not everything expensive will make you happy. You should save money and don't be a waste." Henry was very angry about it and didn't say anything. Now many years have passed, and Henry's become a very mature young man and still lives with his grandmother Isabella. He always asks her for money, but she opposes it and gives him little. Henry is now studying at the College of Engineering, and now he's achieved his dream. He wants to be a famous engineer with a lot of money. Henry has a girlfriend who's studying with him in college, and her name is Sia. Sia is a poor and liar girl. Sia is a very hypocritical person and always lies. Sia says that she's from a rich family and has a lot of money, but the truth is not at all. She only does this to make her public image look good. The truth is that Sia also does this in order to lure Henry to her and fall in love with her. She does this because she also knows that Henry has a lot of money and his grandmother has an inheritance, and she unintentionally disclosed it to her. Sia is like a serpent as she wraps around Henry in order to gain her own personal gain. Sia pretends to love him, and he's already fallen in love with her. Now he wants to marry her, and she's agreed to that. Henry went home and told his grandmother Isabella that he loved a girl named Sia and wanted to marry her. And Grandma Isabella was very happy about this news, saying to him, "Congratulations to you, but the important thing is that I must see this girl your heart has chosen. We have to make sure that she really loves you and is not for anything else." Henry replied, "She loves me, no need for that, Grandma." The next day, Henry and Sia went to Grandma Isabella's house, and Grandma Isabella did not like Sia at all, and she was not comfortable with her. She feels that Sia only wants to marry her grandson Henry because he has an inheritance. She thought that girl was very greedy, and indeed her look was very bright, but Henry was never concerned of that because love blinds the person who truly loves. Henry was never convinced by the words of his grandmother Isabella. Grandma Isabella decided that she would not let Henry take all the inheritance or all the money because it would all be lost because of that girl Sia. And now she took all the money to her bank account and didn't tell him so that he wouldn't get angry. She did it only because she was afraid for her grandson from that girl. Now Henry and Sia are married and live with Grandma Isabella. Isabella doesn't try to deal too much with Sia because she doesn't like her and she thinks she's too greedy. Sia now sees that she did not have the opportunity to take the money because of Grandma Isabella, because she's very strict and took everything. Sia says to her husband Henry, "Now the situation is not good at all. We need money. How can you leave your money and inheritance to your Grandma Isabella? Now we need a lot of money in order to get our lives freely. Your grandmother Isabella puts us in chains and we can't do anything." Henry is very hesitant and doesn't know what to say because he loves his grandmother Isabella very much. But at the same time, he sees what his wife Sia is saying is true, and that he must take money because that's his right. But he does not have the courage to say that at all. Henry asks his grandmother Isabella for money, and she says to him, "I agree with that, but we won't take much so that it's not wasted." They went to the ATM machine, and she entered the password, and the money was withdrawn. But the money is very little. And Henry's very angry and his voice is loud, and everyone looks at them and said, "I need a lot of money. This is my right and this is my inheritance, and no one can interfere in my life." All the audience was surprised because Henry has a very loud voice, and how could he do that with his grandmother Isabella? Isabella said to him, "I am the one who raised you and taught you everything that you're now saying all that." Isabella lost consciousness and was taken to the hospital. Now Henry is very sorry for what he did and wishes his grandmother didn't die. He thought everything his grandmother said was true and that Sia married him just to get the inheritance. Henry enters the room and says to his grandmother in tears, "I'm sorry for everything. I will never do that. I am very remorseful and will not do it. Forgive me. I don't want anything but your forgiveness. I will break up with Sia. I don't want her. You're correct. I just want you to be okay, and I won't let anyone bother you. I'm sorry, forgive me. I am alone without you, and I have no one but you." Grandma Isabella replied in a low voice, "I forgive you. You are everything to me. I just did it to keep you and your money." Months have passed, and now Grandma Isabella is fine, and Henry is separated from his evil wife, Sia. The ending is very happy, and Henry lives with his grandmother Isabella well, and they have money. This story teaches us that we must never be in a hurry, that we must choose our life partner carefully and always listen to advice. We must also treat the elderly with respect.